Good morning everyone. It's raining again. For the last few days it's been pouring down. Plus yesterday we had a power outage. So I was getting a little bit worried that I wouldn't have anything put together for you to show you this week. I've just found myself a bit of shelter. So anyway, let's get into this week's update. It is a bit of a quick whip around the garden showing you bits and pieces that are going on, but I think you should still enjoy it. So let's get into it now. Believe it or not, I still have quite a few cherry tomatoes around the garden. Look at this one here. It actually self-seeded in amongst the perennial basil and the lemon verbena. I've got a lot of seeds to collect. So this plant is the Queen Lime Zinnia. But the thing about collecting seeds is you always do it on a dry day. If I was to pick these off now and store them, they'd probably most likely go mouldy, which is no use to anybody. There's been so much rain, and you can tell because a lot of the plants like this salvia are drooped over. All of the water has just been pelting down on it. You don't actually need to do anything when this happens, because naturally this plant over the next few days when the rain stops will kind of start to lift itself up again, propped up to its regular position. So although it looks pretty flattened, it's going to be fine. This little area is where the oranges meet all of the lemons. And it's looking like I'm going to have a bumper crop this year. I've noticed that a lot of the foliage on this lemon tree is starting to yellow. Quite a lot actually. Similar to what happened last week with my capsicum plant. There could be a few reasons why this is happening, but my best guess is that it's lacking nutrients, because it has been a while since I added some compost manures on the base of this tree. So lemon trees, like orange trees, have a shallow root system. This tree will really benefit from a heavy mulching of compost and manures, especially now as all the fruit are developing. I'm down here in the chicken run where the girls are hanging out at the moment. Best time for them being out when the rain's here, because all the little worms come up to the surface. It doesn't take much effort for them to find a delicious protein treat. I love autumn. One of my favourite things about this season is how all the deciduous trees start to lose their foliage, and the colours are beautiful, absolutely spectacular. Like this mulberry tree, you can see that it's starting to yellow, and soon all these branches will be completely bare. I really need to get myself in gear and start digging up all of these frost tender plants like this lemongrass. It will also be time soon to cut back all of the cucamelons which are growing along this fence line. You can see they're also beginning to die back. Oh, look down here, I didn't even spot these before. All the cucamelons have started to fall off the vine. And you may also notice here, this is the rhizome of one of my plants, which can actually be left in the ground, heavily mulched, and I'll be able to overwinter it. Come springtime, I'll see fresh shoots. Or another option is I can actually dig the whole thing up and store it in a container, similar to the way people store dahlias. Once we get a dry few days, I've got some more seeds to pick off here. These are the ornamental tobacco, and each one of these little seed pods contains hundreds of them. A few minutes ago I was just over the other side of the mulberry tree in the chicken run area, and now I'm out here near the edible fort. As you can see, it didn't turn out as planned. It's not completely covered in beans. It's actually not really doing much at the moment. It's one of my summer garden fails, unfortunately. So the beans that were in here, they were doing well for so long, and then they just started to die off. You can see here it's an absolute mess at the base. I just didn't have the time to look after it. Sometimes I can get a little bit carried away with projects and ideas, and I need to remind myself that I am only a one-person show. I do all of the gardening myself. Occasionally I do get help from my kids when they're in the mood, but otherwise it's just me doing all of this. So sometimes I can get a bit overwhelmed, and things just don't work out as planned. Oh, look at Snowflake, she's absolutely drenched. Why don't you go somewhere where there's a bit more shelter, Snowflake, so you don't get absolutely saturated? These are the containers that I showed you last week, and in less than 7 days I have so many little seedlings now. Those two were the radishes and these two were some Japanese turnips. It always makes me happy seeing little baby plants. What you're looking at here is a almost dead lavender plant. So although lavender is a perennial and it does survive for years on end, I find with my lavender I usually get about 3 or 4 years out of it before it starts to cork it like this one has. I'm a bit annoyed with myself because I had these chrysanthemums looking gorgeous last week and the week before, and now they have definitely passed their best. I just spotted one down there. That's what they looked like. I waited too long to show you. I should have squeezed it into last week's video. Here's some more beautiful autumn colour. These are the crepe myrtle trees out the front, and you can see all the foliage is starting to coat the grass. As a gardener, autumn leaves are extremely valuable. You can use them in multiple ways around your garden. They can be added into your compost pile as brown material. You can rake all of this up and use it as mulch in your garden beds. With larger leaves, you can always gather them up and mow over them before you use them in your garden beds as mulch. They're really beneficial, they break down and feed your plants. And then of course, like any other mulch, it helps to retain moisture and suppress weeds. Another use for these fallen leaves is to make leaf mould, which I've learned from Monty Dawn. You can gather up all these leaves and place them in a plastic bag, or another option is you could put them into an enclosed wire frame and you leave them in there for quite some time. It can take up to about a year, and eventually they will start to break down and rot over this period of time. And when this leaf mould has been made, it can be used in your raised garden beds to improve the condition of the soil. You can also use it as an ingredient, I guess you'd say, when you're making homemade seed raising mix. It's actually now the next day. It was getting pretty dark and wet, so I put the camera down for the night and I'm starting off again this morning. I'm standing up on our front porch. So what you're looking at now is part of the front garden, and although it looks lovely and green, which it is, plenty of perennial plants here, I have to admit it is full of weeds as well. This is one of our camellia trees. It's full of buds but not many flowers. Actually there's a couple that have opened up. If you take a look over here, this is what they'll look like. They're gorgeous, like a light pink colour. Do you remember that spaghetti squash that's growing out in the front garden? Well, a week or two ago I discovered that there are some of them growing up in this tree. The vine attached itself to the foliage and branches and made its way all the way up here. I'll probably need a ladder when it comes to harvest time. Look what I just noticed. I have these jonquils which are spring flowering bulbs. However, it's autumn time and I have a few blooms now. Sometimes this happens here in this area. We get plants flowering at the wrong time of year. Over here, very close to the house, there's this huge deciduous tree. It's taken me a few times to say this. I believe it's called a London plane, and over the last few days I've noticed a huge change in its foliage colour. While I'm over in this area, I just want to show you how impressed I am with these amaranths. They are still going despite the cool weather in the evenings. They are such a tough, very giving plant, well worth growing in your garden. This one I think is the velvet curtain, and these other ones, the perfecta and early splendor. Like, look at these colours, they are on fire. And then there's this one here, which I told you before, I'm not sure what it's called because I don't remember sowing these seeds. I really cannot stress enough how amazing amaranths are. just when I think about all the other plants that have come and gone since I sowed these seeds up until this point, and they are still going strong. Really, they're just wonderful, and I think these will last now right into the start of winter. Thanks so much for watching till the end. I'm going to head inside now and try and get dry. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I'll see you again next Friday.